Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Jackie and this is Jacqueismaking, a place where I talk all about the knit garments, accessories, and sometimes sewing projects that I have going on. And I'm so excited to be back today. I've been away for a little bit because I've been dealing with putting my house up for sale, selling it. I'm also going to be moving. And so just with like the whirlwind of summer travel and all of that, I have had all of my filming equipment put away. It's taken me away a little bit, but I'm so excited to be back today because I have 3 finished objects. I think it's the most finished objects that I've ever had before in a video. And I also have 3 new whips to show for you all. So it's a very exciting episode. If you've never been here before, welcome. I hope you'll hang around and subscribe. But if you are a returning viewer, I'm so glad to have you back and excited to show you everything that I've been up to. So you may notice my first finished object is the one that I am wearing, and this is the Tulip loop vest by Other Loops. This is a project that I kind of had on the needles for quite some time. It was something that was a little bit hurting my hands and something that was a little bit more cumbersome than what I thought it was going to be. So with this is like an Aran weight gauge cabled vest. They are these like bigger cables that are kind of meant to look like a tulip shape, which is so cool. And then it just features some nice like kind of details where you're doing the finishes on the edges while you're knitting. So you never have to re-pick up and knit the edges of the sleeves. Really the only finishing you're doing is on the neck, and then on the hemline is a ribbing finish. Otherwise, yeah, looking at this pattern thought it was going to be almost like a palette refresher, a little bit of like a stash, clean out where I had already had, the gray yarn. This is a Roma 3-ply DK weight yarn. I think it's called Stricagarn. And I had this. I had initially thought I was maybe going to make a different sort of tank top with it. And so I had it in stash. And I was looking for a beautiful cabled vest to make earlier this winter. I think I started this project around January. And looking through, I was like, this project doesn't have a ton of cabled work. A lot of it is too where it's like ribbing, I would say kind of like ribbing throughout here, and then just these like cable features down the front. And there's also a couple of like cabled elements spread throughout that are like tinier ones. And so when I was looking at it, I was like, wow, this, with that Aran weight gauge, it's gonna be a quick one. I'm gonna get stuff out of my stash. All I have to do is order some mohair to go with it. And what it ended up being was like actually a project that, took way more time than I wanted it to. It was kind of a project that I was annoyed to have to pick up, and it was just kind of like weighing on me that I had to finish it. But I kept through it because I knew that it would be like a staple piece. It's a gray V-neck cabled cardigan. Like, I know that this is something that you can style in a million different ways. And so I really just kept through it. And I think I learned a couple of things about myself with this. One is that when my hands are hurting, to perhaps try switching out the cable length. I've noticed depending on like how scrunched up my stitches are or how spread out they are can determine like which way my hands are kind of facing. I use 5-inch Chiagu needles, and depending on that cable size, it just seems like it's either a recipe for disaster or bliss. And so that's something I'm going to keep in mind too, because just switching out a cable length can sometimes really help how I'm feeling about the entire project and how my hands are feeling throughout. So that's something to note. Overall, I am pleased with the garment. I do notice there's a little bit of flaring out here at the shoulders. However, I think that might be due to my personal blocking. When I blocked it, I had my pins really sitting up on the edges of the shoulders. So what I may try next time is just to kind of let it lay flat on its own and maybe push it in a tiny bit so it's not like kind of going up. It almost looks like I'm wearing like a shoulder pad sometimes unless I kind of adjust and pull it down. I was a little bit wary of some like yarn chicken going on at the bottom. So I ended up doing mine a little bit shorter of length on my last cable. I was supposed to maybe do like 10 more rows than I did. Instead, I just went right into ribbing and worked out totally fine for me. I think it's a great length. Hits, you know, a little bit further down the top of my jeans and worked out great. So no issues with that. I also made a modification in this to not do the split hem, just because for me, sometimes I know I like to like tuck in my shirts or tuck in my vests. And I find when I do a split hem, that can just look a little bit funny. So those are the only edits I made. And wearing this now, this is maybe 6th or 7th time I've worn this, and it's hot outside. It's May, it's 75, 80 degrees, and you know, the wonders of air conditioning in the office. It's cold in the office, and so I've still been able to like incorporate this into like fun summer outfits. I have it paired today with a black t-shirt, but typically I've been wearing it with a white t-shirt, and maybe I'd like to pair it with like some sort of button down or something too. But I love that like I still got to wear this finished object for a little bit before it gets into really hot summer, and then I'm planning on this being just like a great versatile piece through fall, winter, spring. So definitely something you can wear all the time. Loving that about vests. And that is everything I think to have to tell you about the Tulip Loop vest. I'm definitely not opposed to doing another cabled vest in the future. I just think that, I don't know, for me, right now, it's like one cabled thing a year is enough. It's enough where it's like, I think I'm liking more color work and stockinette projects and cardigans and that sort of thing more than I'm liking cables texture currently. Maybe I'll change in the future, but just currently the cables are just not as fun and appealing to me. So that's everything with the Tulip Loop vest. That's my first finished object. And now before I jump into my second and third finished object, I would love to thank the sponsor of today's video, and that is Unravelled. So thank you so much to Unravelled for sending me over your gorgeous essential blanket kit. And if you're unfamiliar with this family-owned company, they sell a lot of these kits with gorgeous yarns. It comes with needles. They're like perfect for beginners or just if you're kind of unsure of what to work on next and what yarn to incorporate. I find it's just a really seamless kind of experience on this Unravelled site. And because it's family owned, you may have to like check in periodically to see which colors are refreshing because they are just like a smaller business and constantly I feel like have new colors every single time I go to the site. But they so kindly offered to gift me the essential blanket, and I love that because since I'm building a new house, I feel like a little bit like I'm nesting and I'm wanting to like purchase and make new pieces for my house. And so I picked out the color that, well, I'll show you one of the colors in it. It's kind of a color blocked blanket that goes through 3 different colors. And it features this gorgeous Peruvian yarn. Let's see, it's 60% alpaca, 30% merino, and 10% polyamide made in Peru. And I loved that it had that 10% polyamide so that it might give it some more structure to the blanket and strength, but also was majority of those natural fibers with the 60% alpaca, 30% merino. I just thought that was like such a good combo for a blanket. And so yeah, I picked this color. This is kind of like the main showstopper of the blanket. This is the colorway Pickle. And then we have like 2 other gray shades within here. So see if I can pull these out of the bag. So these are like the 3 colors that will be featured within the blanket. And this is really a nice like garter stitch blanket, garter stitch project where it's nice to kind of just like get lost in it. You're also doing an edge stitch along the way, which is nice because it's kind of like finishing that edge as you're getting started. And so for this one, you're kind of doing 4 balls of each color. And so now I am on, let's see, the 3rd ball. And I kind of have this getting going here. And what I'm loving about it so far is it's so so squishy. I think like that alpaca mixed with the garter stitch is just working up really beautifully. So I'm really pleased with this. The fact that it's named Pickle, it's kind of a fun color, but also can work as like a neutral, especially paired with those grays on my gray couch. I think it's gonna work out really beautiful. This is my very first knit blanket, so I'm kind of excited about that. And just to continue showing you like how this works up and everything for me. If you are interested in some of these kits, what's nice about this is it comes in this like gorgeous tote bag, holds all the yarn that's provided within here. It also comes with a nice printed packet. It has a Chiagu wooden needle included within it, as well as some stitch markers and other like fun goodies within here. So it's a really fun package to like open and experience as well. That makes me feel like it would just be a really nice gift to give to someone or to give to yourself. So thank you again to Unravelled. If any of my viewers are interested in checking it out, I'll leave a link for you down below. And as well for you guys, they have offered a 10% off to all of my listeners with the code jacqueismaking. So I'll just include all of that down below for you. Thank you again to Unravelled. All right, so it is next FO time. Can you believe it? What a fun video, 3 FOs. I'm so excited. Okay, so next I have for you another Palm Springs tank. If you're a familiar viewer, you may know I made the first Palm Springs tank. I was a part of the test group for this pattern, and I made it out of a Knitting for Olive merino. And a lot of people within the test group were using hand-dyed, like superwash kind of sock yarns. And so I was really inspired by all of the projects that everybody was doing within the test group. And I had went to a yarn fest where there's so much hand dyed, and I'm always looking for projects that like only take 1 to 2 skeins of yarn, where you can just get like a nice souvenir yarn and make it into a project, and it's not a huge like cost, especially if you're going shopping and you just like you don't know what project to buy for. But if you have a go-to where you know you only need 2 skeins, I was kind of excited about that for this, where I knew I loved my Palm Springs tank and I could just get 2 skeins of yarn and dive right into it. So that's what I did with this. And this yarn is in the colorway Lake Huron, which was really fun because as I was finishing this up this past weekend, I was driving through Michigan and actually went over the Mackinac Bridge, and on one side was Lake Michigan and the other side was Lake Huron. So that was just like kind of cute to be working on it as I was driving over and looking at the beautiful crystal clear water. It's so gorgeous. But yeah, if you're unfamiliar with this pattern, it is almost like, you know, nowadays I would call this like, this is like your traditional sort of tank top racerback style. So a lot of big box stores will have these just because it's such a great go-to. It has a little bit of negative ease, so I find that it's a great undergarment to wear, but it's also really nice with like a nice tailored pant or a jean. It's just like a really easy outfit. And so I love that Knit California created this for us in such like a easy to use fun pattern. Like I almost feel when I was working on this, it was reminding me of this banana bread recipe I used to make for my husband in college, where I made it for him so many times that I had memorized the recipe. It was a Food Network recipe. It was actually for banana bread, but I would make it into muffins and they would get huge, right? Because it's supposed to be bread and I would make it into 12 muffins. But all this to say, like, I made it so many times that I had memorized the recipe, and I almost can see myself doing that with this tank of like, I feel like I'm gonna make it so many times that I'm gonna have it memorized. Like even the second time through, I was like, yeah, I don't even like need to look at the pattern. I already know exactly what's going on there. So yeah, I don't have a ton to note with this. I'll, of course, with everything that I'm talking about today, have my Ravelry projects linked down below with yarn links, needle sizes, all of that sort of thing. But yeah, I love how this looks in a more variegated, I guess this is like a tonal variegated yarn. I think it looks so gorgeous. What I loved about this yarn in particular is I was a little bit concerned going from like the top into the body that the striping would look a lot different. You know, sometimes it can like be tighter, and then once you get into the body, it gets, you know, more spread out and just kind of looks like it doesn't match. But this yarn, I don't know what happened, but it just like is perfect patterning all throughout, which is amazing. It's so great. I do go down quite a few needle sizes when I knit this, so I'll have everything that I do on the screen for you all. I will say I did maybe struggle a little bit again with the hem, a fold over hem. Just the way that you do this in this pattern is you're going down to your smaller needle size, you're knitting to a certain length, then you're folding it over and taking a darning needle and just kind of looping through your knit stitch, and then with the stitch within, so kind of just, you know, hand sewing it down throughout. And I find that it was kind of hard to keep my place and know exactly where I was in that folded hem. So it's not like exactly perfect all the way across, which you really can't totally see. It's just that I know that fact. But it did make me look into some other methods of folding down hems. And I found a webpage that I thought was like super helpful in some other methods that I may consider for the hem. I feel like for the neck and the armbands, I have no issue with that method. It comes out into like a beautiful result for me on those two portions. It's just like the bottom hem that gets like a little bit finagly for me. I have no, I don't really know why. Maybe because it's such like a larger portion. But yeah, that's something that I'm going to be looking into, since I can totally see myself making another one of these. I think for summer, there's another tank top I'm looking into making that has a little bit more of a wider strap. And so I may do that before I would jump back into another one of these. But as some of you may know, I am going to Flock Fiber Fest, and there's so much hand dyed at that. So I totally think I'm gonna be in the market for a couple of skeins to make another one of these. And I think that's just like my last note on this one, is just to be mindful. You know, it is a little bit of a smaller strap, plus it is a little bit like racer back, and it's negative ease. And so the stitches kind of spread a little bit like across. If you're a fuller chested woman or male, like they just spread across a little bit. And so what happens is you can see your undergarment, at least for me. So what I like to wear is more of like a sports bra type style, where it's a full coverage underneath, and then has like those nicer, like thin racer back straps. So yeah, that's like my only consideration with this. If you don't really like your bra strap showing, and want like the full nice racer back look, that's like my preferred undergarment to this. And it's just something to consider if you're going to be knitting this. So yeah, that is my second Palm Springs tank. And now for my third finished object, oh my goodness gracious, I have the Key Cardigan by PetiteKnit. And this is, I've been calling it the keyless cardigan, because the Key Cardigan has like this beautiful like colorwork striping throughout it. And I actually made mine a completely solid color just because I really liked the shaping of that cardigan. I liked the gauge of it and felt like it would work well with this Pure Gint yarn that I had. And so that was kind of my reasoning behind selecting it. And yeah, this was actually my first ever cardigan, and it was also my first time ever steeking a cardigan, and I have some insights about that. So with the steek, I used a couple of different tutorials, and I will link them down below in the description box. And I think my biggest takeaway about steeking is like, it's so easy. It's actually maybe too easy, especially because I used my sewing machine. So I knit the pattern almost exactly, except for in the front, I added a purl then 3 stitches, and then another purl, so 5 stitches total, and then knit the pattern otherwise as normal. And that was kind of for me to easily see those purl stitches with the knit stitches in the middle, and knowing I would cut down that middle of the 3 knit stitches. So it would kind of look like this, and I would cut down this middle one. And that was great for me. It was super easy to see. And once I was ready, there are a couple of different methods. Sometimes people will use like a crochet hook to reinforce the steek. Sometimes people will try to make like felt it down the sides. And then others will use just like a sewing machine. And so that's what I decided to do. And I'm so happy I did, because it was incredibly speedy and effortless. So what I did was I just put on some like matching thread. I have some navy thread, and I didn't even put on a walking foot. I had seen that that was a recommendation for some, but I was like, you know, I'm gonna try it without. Totally fine. And I was able to just line up those purl stitches. So I had an exact straight line, and I just zipped down one, turned it around, zipped down the other, and I was ready to cut. And I wasn't scared at all to cut, because I knew that I had reinforced with my sewing machine. And so yeah, it was actually like maybe a tiny bit anticlimactic, because it was like, I trusted my sewing machine so much. I was like, this really isn't scary. So yeah, it was like a little bit anticlimactic, but then it was also just super reassuring, and I was excited like that I had trusted the process. I will say how easy it is to cut into knitting is scary, because, you know, at any point it's like, oh my gosh, I need to avoid sharp objects now, because it's so easy to just like wreck a knitting project with a pair of scissors. But yeah, just cut right down the center, and yeah, it was fine. I just was like, it's okay. I'm good. I'm good. And then I went right away into the placards, which were just like a ribbed 1x1, and then finished with a couple of setup rows and an Italian bind off. And one thing that I did notice though is that the steek was definitely going to bother me, because it was so like frilly. And I could just tell that like if I let it all out, it was going to be something I was going to think about. If my cardigan flew open, I was going to see it, and just, yeah, it felt like more susceptible to like unraveling or being damaged. It reminded me a lot of sewing, where I don't know if you would be familiar with, you know, whether you're using like an interlocking machine, like a serged seam, or I've also done like French seams, which are really nice because it just hides the seam fully within it. Or you could simply just do like a jagged edge on a seam, and then that would be more susceptible to getting like kind of gross. And I've done every single method in my sewing, and by far and away, the French seams are the most clean. It just feels so high end and so special, because everything is just like packaged nicely within the seam, and you can't see anything, and it's beautiful. And so knowing that, I was looking at this, and you know, I know of people covering their steek with like Norwegian ribbons, and so yeah, I was like, I think that's something that I would want to do. And I was looking up online, Amazon, different places, and I was noticing just like the recommendation for a jacquard type ribbon. And so then I was looking up jacquard ribbons on Etsy, and I found this gorgeous one that I thought would look so beautiful with this color, and I felt like it kind of matched both my style and also the style of the cardigan. And it's kind of like this beautiful kind of like folk style motif that I thought was just like so gorgeous. So yeah, what I did was I actually was, you know, I think I'm gonna try putting this under my sewing machine. And so I put the edge closest to like the placket under my sewing machine, and I did one line, and I took it out, and I was like, yeah, that looks really good. So then I turned it and I started to do the other line and I pulled it out. And because the line closest was like the edge of this button band, it hid the sewing line really well. But when I used my sewing machine on the outside of it, it started to make like an indentation line, and it was more obvious that I had a ribbon underneath it. And so I was like, no, I'm going to sew both down the sides closest to the button band with my sewing machine, and then I'm gonna hand sew the other portion. And so I kind of did that, did both sides, took out my navy thread and sat myself down on the couch and just hand sewed the other side of it, just so that it could be a little bit more spread out, and it worked out so perfectly. So I did that here. I also, because that was my first time making a cardigan, it was my first time like purchasing buttons, and there's so many beautiful places to buy buttons online. I was a little bit like, I don't know, decision fatigue of not really sure of what to select and what to put in here. I knew that I wanted like a dark-ish, like medium, chestnutty, tortoise sort of button to go alongside of this. And I was really interested in like a natural sort of button, like a horn button. And everything that I found was just like expensive or had really high shipping. And so I ended up just selecting like a nice pack from Amazon that worked out well in this case. I do think next time I'm definitely interested in like sourcing some good buttons, but this one was just kind of like, I'm ready to be done. This looks very similar, like it's a very close look-alike, and I'm pleased with it, but just open to more buttons in the future. And like, this is like a whole natural garment, right? Like 100% wool. I'm using this like gorgeous ribbon, and so it would be nice to complement it all with like a natural button. So yeah, this is something to think about for the future. But yeah, that is the cardigan. And one other thing to note too about the steek ribbon is I actually kind of like the weight that it's giving to the front. Because I have a more full chest, it's really nice to have a little bit of that weight in the front, because I felt like when I didn't button it, it still sat at the front of my chest so nicely all day. I wasn't like, it didn't fly open, it wasn't like loosey-goosey. It sat like nice and tailored looking all day, which that was just like a huge surprise, like a very pleasant surprise. And I was, yeah, just very pleased with that. So those are all three of my finished objects, as well as that unraveled blanket. And now I have 2 more whips to showcase for you. I mean, what a fun podcast episode. And this one I have to show for you is the Roma vest. And this is something, let's see, I'll get my yarn out here for you. This yarn is so fun. This is BC Garn Samilla, and this is Navia Alpaca. And both of these were provided to me by Kelbourne Woolens and are available on Kelbourne Woolens' site. So I'll have that linked in the description box for you if you want to look at some of these gorgeous colors. But yeah, this, I was like looking for, you know, different cardigans. And then I was like, what if I made a cardigan vest? And I just absolutely fell in love with her light blue version. However, I wanted to pick something that had a little bit more of like a teal edge to it. And I think that I picked some really good colors for this. Now, because I've had 3 other finished objects, this, I have no idea what's going on with this. I will be so honest with you guys. I have no idea. I know that this is like a beautiful slip stitch sort of thing going on. I know I'm making, you know, like that typical back panel, like trapezoid type of shape where you do the back panel, and then I'm making increases into the armholes, and I know I'll be picking up on both sides. And so I know generally what's going on here, but if I'm being completely honest, my mind's like, oh yeah, that's soft. I kind of know what's going on, but I also completely forgot. So you may need to wait for further updates into my next podcast episode, where I'm going to be rereading through the entire pattern and getting more started on this. But yeah, just know for now, it's gorgeous what I've done so far. I'm really excited about the actual fabric of it, and I'm excited to wear it in sort of the same style that the pattern has it modeled with, like with a white t-shirt. I think it's so beautiful. So yeah, I know that was a quick one, but just know I have no idea what's going on in here. And so I'll have to wait till next podcast episode to give you like a full rundown. Okay, so my last project I have for you is from Farm to Needle, and this was a gorgeous shop I found in northern Michigan. We were there for a wedding, and I had a couple of days, like just some free afternoons to myself because my husband was in the wedding party. And so yeah, I just needed to like keep myself occupied. And so of course I was looking up nearby yarn shops, and I was so impressed with this beautiful yarn shop. I walked in and it was like, it had gorgeous like Sandnes yarn and all these different like brands that I see online, but I don't get to see in person. They also had a ton of like kits and printed patterns. And then they also had like a gorgeous sewing section in the back with merchant mills fabric. Like everything was just so tastefully selected and picked out. And that is just like so appreciated by me. Anything that's like curated and they've just like clearly done their research and made an effort to make it so beautiful in there. It was gorgeous. It was a really fun shop to visit. And so I actually wasn't really planning on making anything. However, I had cast off my Palm Springs tank and my cardigan in the car, and you know, it's like a 7-hour drive. So I was like, well, I guess I have to buy something to keep me occupied on the way home. And so I was kind of looking for projects with the needle that I had brought, which was, I had a US 2 and a US 3. And what was nice is she had some patterns printed, and then they also had just like so many different garments in the store to like touch and feel and look at. And one was this like gorgeous t-shirt that was made out of a fingering weight yarn, and it was just so flowy and felt so soft. And I liked that the gauge was a little bit tighter, and it was made out of Malabrigo sock. And the tee was called the Nova tee. And so I was like, you know what? I looked up the yardage. I would need 3 skeins. So I was like, that's perfect. Exactly what I'm looking for. And lo and behold, the shop owner had actually written the pattern. And like the photo shoot was on like right next to a lighthouse, right next to where I was staying. And the color I selected is green, and like everywhere around me was like gorgeous blooming green. And so it really felt like an applicable souvenir and like momentum of my trip to Michigan to like buy something this store owner and designer had created. It was like such a cool moment. I was like, oh, this is perfect. So what I ended up getting is Malabrigo sock, and this is what the pattern was made out of on the floor, and also what was recommended in the pattern. And the color that I got is Fresco E Secco, and this is a 100% superwash merino wool. And it's so gorgeous. Actually, I have like a kind of funny picture because in the store I was wearing a hat and I took it off and like took a picture. I was like, does this look good on me? And I know I look good in this like true Kelly green, plus this it like shifts a little bit towards like a tealy color. So I was like, I think this is gonna be a really fun one. I also was considering, they have like a nice blue, I think it's like an oceany color name, and it's gorgeous, but I've knit with so much blue lately that I was like, yeah, maybe let's go a little bit green. So yeah, this is what I picked out, and it's so soft and nice. I do have a little bit of the project getting started so far. This is a drop shadow. Let's see, I got my yarn all tangled up here, but this is a drop shoulder. Should I say drop shadow? You can tell that I'm a graphic designer. This is a drop shoulder pattern, and so you're making that like nice back panel and shoulder front to get started. And so I have a little bit of progress done here, and this is definitely going to be like a little bit of a longer time project because I'm using a US 2 needle size on this. I kind of cheated, girl mathed my way out of a gauge swatch because I had just knit that Palm Springs tank on a US 3 and I had it with me, and that was used with a fingering weight superwash yarn as well. So I was able to know, okay, this is kind of my gauge with a US 3 and that's bigger than what is needed for this pattern. So I was like, I know for sure I'm gonna need to go down because the recommended is a US 3. So I just knew, yeah, I think I'm gonna need to go down. All right, I'm sorry, my camera died, so I just went and quick grabbed a lunch and I'm back down, but I cannot remember where I left off with my t-shirt. Just know in the next episode, I'll be diving into getting started on that and everything going on with that current whip. But I think this is a good time to just close on out. I'll insert a couple of house update photos for you guys. I should be moving in at the end of this month, so background will change and all of that. And I'm excited to just have like a new setup to like kind of enjoy and film it and get back to a regular weekly podcast because I really miss this space and love like being here and connecting with you all and making it a part of like my creative output. So thank you all for being here today, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you in the next podcast episode. Bye-bye.